You have been, if I could just be blunt, on fire on Twitter and in your public comments. I've been riveted by everything that you've had to say. And really, I just want your thoughts on the announcement made today by President-elect Biden on what Jeff Bennett from NBC News is now reporting just this hour to be the transition as representing Joe Biden's team in contact with every cabinet agency. So an actual transition with landing teams has commenced. But as David Plouffe and I were just discussing, there's a president who hasn't conceded with millions of followers who believe his lies.
Well, Nicolle, first of all, I'd say I think a lot of us are feeling it's a day of hope. You know, we've finally been relieved from these last 4 years, and Donald Trump is receding into the rearview mirror very slowly, but he is receding. And, you know, these are all really great people who stood in that stage in Wilmington today. They're public servants. They're in government for the right reasons. They're very smart and experienced, and they're sophisticated about the world. And they're going to be led by Joe Biden, who I think probably along with George H.W. Bush is the president most ready to be commander in chief in charge of our foreign policy on day one, if you think about recent American history. And these are all friends of mine. They're people I deeply, deeply respect. And I think they're going to make us proud. And, you know, Donald Trump dug, Nicolle, as you know, a really deep hole for the United States. We're mistrusted in Europe. We're still at 2 wars. The Chinese are outpacing us in East Asia. We've got to run fast. But I think this team can do it. And if we get behind them, we can bring America back, because we've been weak for the last 4 years.
I wonder if you can speak specifically to what sort of damage to morale and recruitment and the sanctity of sort of the State Department culture has been done. Mike Pompeo was on that phone call when Donald Trump sought to extort Zelensky. Mike Pompeo, I think, was also on the phone with Erdogan when Donald Trump greenlit an incursion that resulted in the slaughter of American allies, the Kurds. I mean, there has been so much damage done, not just to the job of Secretary of State, but to the building and what it stands for. How does Tony Blinken start to turn that around? What does he do first?
Well, I think Tony can do it. And I think with the help of people like Ambassador Linda Thomas Greenfield, who's an extraordinary person, Donald Trump called the State Department the deep state. He's the one who forced Ambassador Masha Yovanovitch and Ambassador Bill Taylor, you remember them when they testified in the impeachment inquiry, forced out of government. He tried to cut the budget of the State Department by 1/3. He just completely sidelined the State Department. And, you know, we're saying today diplomacy is back because there's been very little diplomacy under Donald Trump. So I do think that Tony Blinken's a really inspired choice. He was Deputy Secretary of State. He understands the building. Ambassador Thomas Greenfield is a career Foreign Service officer. She's one of the people who can, I think, lead this resurgence. And we've just had a 2-year Harvard study that concluded last week. We launched it. That talks very specifically about what you could do. Congress can act by making sure the State Department has an adequate budget. We haven't had a Foreign Service act by Congress in 40 years to think through the mission and mandate of the State Department. And I think these are the kinds of changes that can be made that can bring state back, put it in the center of our foreign policy. And the big challenges for the next decade, climate change, the pandemic, getting out of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, embracing our allies, they're all going to be led by diplomats, not necessarily by soldiers anymore. And so we've got to have a first-rate diplomacy and State Department. And I think this administration, I think the president-elect is determined to do that.
How do we convince our allies that we're still a functioning democracy? And I ask that in the spirit of something you tweeted, or you said to Jonathan Swan of Axios. Trump is doing more damage to American democracy than Russia, China, Iran, or North Korea could ever do with their cyber attacks on us. It's the most serious threat to our democracy in my lifetime.
I think it's I think what Trump's done to delegitimize people's votes is to basically say, if you voted for Joe Biden, you're not a real American, and I'm going to try to nullify your vote. It's telling Republicans, his own supporters, that this was not a free and fair election. And that's why this is the greatest threat to democracy in all of our lifetimes. And he hasn't even conceded yet. When I was a diplomat, Foreign Service officer, Nicolle, I worked for both Republican and Democratic administrations. I can't tell you how many times we would lean on foreign officials because they were trying to steal an election. And now the shoe's on the other foot. So I think that's the danger to us. But we can overcome it And today was just such a positive day because you could just see this team moving forward to lead us out of this darkness of the last 4 years.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.